Just heard a little bit of echoing, but is it? Huh?
I think you're good. If I mute myself, you probably won't get the echo.
Okay, cool. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for giving us your Sunday. I know our Sundays are at least my Sunday is very, very, very special to me. As you can see, I'm in my jammies. So I'm keeping up with the Sunday orientation and a day of rest. I guess I will just start. I feel like everything was kind of said earlier. Oh, sorry. Let me go ahead and turn this off. Hi, Mom. um, but yes, today I'm going to be basically presenting this new body of work that I've been working on called Afromediation. And it's fairly new. It's like a little baby right now. So I think right now I'm in the stages where I would really like to um, take her out in spaces, see how it's mulling over for other people, see the capacities that it has, also recognize any blind spots that I could nip in the butt from now. And you guys will all be a part of that process. So I really appreciate having you guys here. I did request that for the space we bring a photo of someone that you are currently in grief with, whether that be someone who's alive or transitioned, just having that photo on hand somewhere around you, even in your mind, having that person um, close to heart as we go through these slides. Today, I'm going to be holding my grandpa. He's alive. He's just a Capricorn and so stubborn. So he's like mad at me because I made a boundary. My grandpa's a very sweet person. Just one of the only good Jamaican guys I know, but I'm sure that's just because he's my grandpa and I don't know many of their contexts, you know what I mean? But I made a boundary because he was speaking to me like not in a nice way, not in a kind way. And these last few months, I really recognize how I really have to be firmer with boundaries when it comes to my blood family. Because as I go out in the world, the way people treat me, sometimes it just slips by where I don't even recognize how unkind it is because of the ways that I'm also used to being treated, in my direct blood family. So I made a boundary. I was like, Grandpa, you can't talk to me like that. And the Capricorn man didn't like that. He didn't like that. So now he's deep in his feelings, and he's been in his feelings for like a month or so. So I'm holding his photo with me, a photo that I took of him on my Mamiya. I'll show it to you guys right now. He's just such a funny dude. Like I also just like really, he's like the one person in my family where we're just like very silly together. You know what I mean? So I just miss being silly with him. I'm like, when do you want to get over me making a boundary? Like I would really like to get back to the silliness. Can't find the photo, but anyways. So hold that photo close. Hold that understanding close of anyone that you are in grief with, whether it be by, transition through death, which is obviously death is an eternal way of renewal. Death is not an ending. Death is not, it's not like you're dead and like that's it. It's just a recycling of our spirits. And with that, I'm going to start with the presentation. Let me know if y'all could see it. 1 second. I need to actually. Okay, here we go. Is it now? Okay. If I do presenter view, would y'all see that? I don't know. Let me see. Okay, I think I'll do like that. Yeah, okay. Okay. Are you guys seeing that? Cool. Also, throughout the presentation, please feel free if there's anything that you have any questions on, you could go ahead and like just put a question. I'm pretty sure if you just click that, it'll take you and you can like type out the question as it comes to you. And then at the end of this presentation, I'll go ahead and go over all your questions and see if I could.
So do you mind copying that link for me real quick? Let
Yeah,
me
I
put
got
that. Yeah.
1 second. Here we go. Actually, I think I could just, I think, drop it into the, there we go. That should be it. Can someone try to click it and see what it's given? I'll just pin that.
Yeah, it works. It works.
Okay, cool. So for any questions, comments, anything that maybe, you know, even critique, drop it there and we'll go over it at the end of the session. And let me see if I get this to presenter view. Okay, when I move it, did it move for you guys just a while ago? Yes. No. Hello?
Yes, it did.
It did? Okay, cool. All right. So this is a lecture series. This is the first of its kind under baby Suggs Meadows. And we're going to be going over Afromediation, call and response, and the unmentionables. So, okay. All right. So for the manifesto, just an idea of what I'm trying to forge with this theory. Any person incorporating Afromediation into their practice finds themselves most agreeable with others who have also become tender through large pools of grief. Afromediation is viewed as a tool, not a dogma, more so an eternal spring in which our grievances and an inalienable life may wade in. When it becomes too much to hold with our bare flesh, Afromediation is a response to a guttural call, a remembering over 13,000 years of pre-colonial breath that was disrupted by chattel slavery and Arab and European supremacy. This is a call for breath, returning to breath while imagining renewed breaths. Afromediation is one of the multiple theories that centers on Afro-Indigenous reverential histories with death, grief, and the eternal promise of renewed life. All this to say, Afromediation is not the first of its kind, nor will it be the last of its intention. Afromediation is not a messiah, nor does it exist in a vacuum. Afromediation is made possible by the collective, by the masses, and by the care that swarms from the daily rejection of hyper-individualism. Honorable mentions of where I pull a lot of my own ideas from and like how this body of work has been building. I've been following a lot of Ubuntu-centered practices, Dagara ritualisms, post-human theory, Afropessimism, necropolitics, Bantu Congo cosmology, ethical non-monogamy, and relationship anarchy. Also have to give that a shout out. It's really given me a lot of perspective on how hierarchy is not inherent. Schizoanalysis and anti-Oedipus perspectives, Plantationocene, Capitalocene, Titulocene, Sankofa from the Akan people, and reindigeneity in relation to Turtle Island. And of course, our lovely ancestor, Toni Morrison. Always gotta give my girl her credit. A firm acknowledgement of what Afromediation is not, because I really don't want us to get into no weird waters of this being like, I have a lot of caution against placing any of my work in the center of like, this is how it needs to be done. This is a guide. This is like how you get to this place. I really want to reiterate that this is not a means to an end. You know what I mean? This is not a like linear solution based. If you follow the ideas from Afromediation, you will be healed. I don't know if a solution exists. I know that I believe in the unraveling. I know I believe in giving honor to our pain. I know I believe in returning to our ideas of time that are not linear, that come from our cosmology, you know, thinking of time as a circle and not as like a point A, point B. So what does Afromediation have the capacity to be? It has the capacity to be a balm for genocidal wounds, a map to reconstruct with one's ancestral council, guide to deeper reservoirs of pleasure and pre-colonial joy, a non-linear meadow dedicated to transmute unimaginable grief, and a subjective playground to experiment with the ways in which we can acknowledge, honor, and tend to collective wounds etched into our bloodlines brought on by displacement, cultural erasure, ecocide, genocide, and enslavement. So this is what Afromediation, what I would like for it to, how I would like for it to resound in community. Like I said, not a means to an end. I do not have the answers, but I do have some balm. I do have some herbs, and I do have some words that I would like to share. Here's a color key for our first reading. So when you see anything highlighted in green, think of what I said in response to Afromediation. When you see anything in like a purple tone, I'm pointing to call and response, which we'll get into more later on. And then when you see anything with like this like orangey yellow, Tuscany sun kind of tone, that is where we're talking about the unmentionables, which I'll also elaborate later on in this presentation. Is everyone cool? How's everyone feeling? Are we good? Okay.
Excited.
I think we're good. Stay with me here, folks. All right. So first, we're going to be reading Beloved by Toni Morrison. And I would love to have some participation from anyone who'd be down to read, maybe a little popcorn reading. Obviously, if you don't want to read, please do not feel compelled to, like, honor your things right now. I know it's a Sunday. I know some of us are non-verby. Honor yourselves. But if I could have a volunteer, if anyone is down. Me watching now. Yes, thank you. Oh, we got two. Okay. I think I'll call on a few different people, but let me know if I'm pronouncing this right. Zainab?
Yes, you pronounced that right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, if you could do us the honor and read this first excerpt we have.
All right. Beloved by Toni Morrison. It was time to lay it all down. When warm weather came, baby Suggs, holy, followed by every Black man, woman, and child who could make it through, took her great heart to the clearing, a wide open space cut deep in the woods, nobody knew for what, at the end of a path known only to deer and whoever cleared the land in the first place. In the heat of every Saturday afternoon, she sat in the clearing while the people waited among the trees.
Thank you, Zainab. And then for this next one, can I have Moses? I saw you raise your hand. Oh, sorry, not Moses, Mason. I saw you raise your hand earlier.
Okay. After situating herself on a huge flat-sided rock, baby Suggs bowed her head and prayed silently. The company watched her from the tree. Sorry, y'all. I just ran up the stairs, so I'm like out of breath.
You're good.
Excuse me. They knew she was ready when she put her stick down. Then she shouted, "Let the children come," and they ran from the trees towards her. "Let your mothers hear you laugh," she did, and the woods rang. The adults looked on and could not help smiling. "Then let the grown men come," she shouted. They stepped out one by one from among the ringing trees. "Let your wives and children see you dance," she told them, and ground life shuddered under their feet. Finally she called in the women to her. "Cry," she told them, "for the living and the dead. Just cry." And without covering their eyes, the women let loose.
Thank you so much, Mason. And before we get to the next slide, I would like for us to hone in on the highlighted section. And without covering their eyes, I would like to attribute that to Afromediation, which a big part of Afromediation is dispelling all shame when it comes to our grief, not isolating ourselves when we're confronting grief, not covering our eyes, not being afraid to cry. I mean, cry blood if you need to. There's things that are that heartbreaking and that fracture us. We do need to cry blood sometimes. So I really appreciated this moment where Tony says, where Baby Suge says, and without covering their eyes, the women let loose. I think that's like a very beautiful way to understand, like, to be grieving in community and to be grieving where you don't have to hide yourself, where actually it's being nurtured, and it's kind of like you're obligated to be as loud as you need to be. For our next slide, I have a couple more. Could I have a volunteer for this one, please? Okay. And I'm not good. Nyanchama. Let me know if I said that right. I'm not good with it.
Nope, you did not, but
Fair,
that's fine.
fair.
I think it's the same way that people say Kenya, like you guys, Americans say Kenya. When
Oh, not too much now. Not American. Not too much. Not
Okay,
too
okay,
much. Not too much. Jamaican, first gen, but I'm not really from here. Not too much on the kid.
All
But
right, I'm
I
sorry.
understand. I understand. You're right.
And then it's Nyanya, so Nyanchama, Kenya. All right. So it started that way. Laughing children, dancing men, crying women, and then it got mixed up. Women stopped crying and danced. Men sat down and cried until, exhausted and riven, all and each lay about the clearing, damp and gasping for breath. In the silence that followed, Baby Suggs, holy, offered up to them her great big heart. She did not tell them to clean up their lives or to go and sin no more. She did not tell them they were the blessed of the earth, its inheriting meek or its glory bound pure. She told them that the only grace they could have was the grace they could imagine. That if they could not see it, they would not have it.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. Oh, okay. I'm off of it. Thank you so much for reading that passage. I read Beloved when I was probably like, I want to say at 23 years old. I'm now 29, so it's been a while. And I still have not finished this book. Because one thing about me, if you know me, I do not do scary things. I don't do horror. I don't watch horror movies. I don't watch scary movies. I don't do any of that. No. And Beloved is kind of scary. Like, I remember reading that book and feeling like I would be under the covers, like, yo, like, it's a ghost story, you know? So I haven't finished the book, but I do remember feeling so moved by this passage. And the name of this lecture series is called Baby Suggs Meadows. So I just remember being 23 years old, and I was like, wait, can people grieve like that? Like, do people grieve where they're laughing and dancing and crying and just holding their pain with one another? And it reminded me a lot of how I have attended funerals in the past, where like in Jamaica, we have like 9 nights, you know, and with 9 nights, it's like, it's just this string of days that you have, and you eat, you have lots of food being cooked. It's just like this like celebration in the midst of like grief. And I think this passage really helped me to start grasping that there's like ancestral roots there, where it's like Jamaicans can just come up with that. Like, that's something that has been passed down through our bones, through our blood. And then also what we're seeing here with what Tony is recounting, this is a very ancestral way of Baby Suggs is quite literally just like continuing on her traditions, you know, where it's like we're obviously been displaced from them, but in a lot of ways we do reflect them, just in the ways that we deal with funerals and with death. So countless places in the diaspora where there's so much celebration around death. And I really appreciated where she said she told them that the only grace that they could have was the grace that they could imagine, that if they could not see it, they would not have it. This was also a big time for me, 23, 24, where I'm like, what do I want? Who am I? And like, do I even deserve to dream this big? And I feel with that line, thinking from the perspective and the lens of like pleasure activism, like, yes, your dreams are the are the architecture of your lived reality. Dream bigger. However you're dreaming right now, dream even bigger. Whatever dream you have right now is a draft. Dream bigger. Go big. Bigger, bigger, bigger. If you leave with one thing, go dream bigger. You're probably dreaming too small. I don't know you though. And with that, our next slide, can I have another volunteer? Was that a hand raise? I don't know.
I don't know how to raise my hand, but I do it.
Okay, yeah. I'm not sure who's speaking right now, but please. Oh, Jewel?
Hi.
Hi.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Nice. All right. Here, she said, in this here place we flesh that weeps, laughs, flesh that dances on bare feet in grass. Love it hard. Yonder, they do not love your flesh. They despise it. They don't love your eyes. They just as soon pick them out. No more do they love the skin on your back. Yonder they flay it. And oh my people, they do not love your hands. Those they only use, tie, bind, chop, and leave empty. Love your hands, love them, raise them and kiss them, touch others with them, pat them together, stroke them on your face, 'cause they don't love that either. You got to love it, you. And no, they ain't in love with your mouth. Yonder out there, they will see it broken and break again. What you say out of it, they will not heed. What you scream from it, they do not hear.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jewel. Also, beautiful reading voice. You got a lot of, I don't know, something there. I felt it. This passage still continuing on, and here, if you see, we have a highlighted from our color key, and with that color, that's to signify a marker of the unmentionables, which, like I said, we'll get into more later on in the lecture. But please keep that in mind. They don't love your eyes. They just as soon as pick them out. I really want us to think of the material reality of Black people being consumable in every aspect. That's not just our labor, but also our flesh, also our organs, our limbs, our hair, our textures. Like, if you think about chattel slavery has a lot of ties with like cattle. So the ways that cattle is treated, where we even have different names for different parts of the cattle. You know what I mean? In that same context, I want us to start putting ourselves in the shoes of understanding what Blackness is and what Blackness is in response to. Blackness is a term that encapsulates us transforming into cattle, us being dissected. There's beef, there's steak, there's cow's tongue. Like, there's an actual material reality of how our bodies have been diced up. And we'll get into that further on. For this last one, I'll actually do it. I'll actually do the reading. What you put into it to nourish your body, they will snatch away and give you leavings instead. No, they don't love your mouth. You got to love it. This is flesh I'm talking about here. Flesh that needs to be loved. Feet that need to rest and to dance. Backs that need support. shoulders that need arms, strong arms, I'm telling you. And oh, my people out yonder, hear me. They do not love your neck unnoosed and straight. So love your neck, put a hand on it, grace it, stroke it, and hold it up. And all your inside parts that they just as soon slop for hogs. You got to love that. Oh, got to love the typo, the dark, dark liver. Love it, love it. And the beat and beating heart, love that too. More than eyes or feet, more than the lungs that have yet to draw free air, more than your life-holding womb and your life-giving private parts. Hear me now, love your heart, for this is the prize. Saying no more, she stood up, then and danced with her twisted hip the rest of what her heart had to say, while the others opened their mouths and gave her music, long notes held until the four-part harmony was perfect enough for their deeply loved flesh. Beautiful, beautiful passage. We have some color key indicators. So, and all your inside parts that they just as soon slot for hogs. That's where we're talking about the unmentionables once again. And while the others opened their mouths and gave her music, that's where we're going to be talking about call and response, which is what we're going to get into right now. So call and response. I would love to hear about what you guys think of when you hear call and response, if anything. If anyone has any thoughts on like what are the things that came to mind when you heard call and response? Absolutely, always. Tony's a gift, a memorial gift. All right, let's hear from Sib. Let's hear from you.
Hello, everyone. When I hear call and response, I think of traditional or indigenous African tunes, where there is one leader um, who leads the call and response, and then something cool about it is how it is not set to an octave or a specific pitch. From whatever pitch they start it in, everybody else, their voices naturally adjust 5 tones down. Um, and that is how like natural music works. So I think it's a connection between people in community, um, of nature, of the body, and that's what I think of. So.
Thank you so much, Sib. How about Mason?
Sorry, I didn't mean to have my hand up. I actually wanted to hear more about what you had in mind for that.
No worries, no worries. Okay, April?
Um, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, when I think of call and response, it immediately made me think of a choir, of course. And it's kind of like preaching. It's like being a teacher, like speaking to the choir, talking to them, teaching them stuff. And then they respond to it. They like, I guess, internalize what has been said to them. And they think about it and they utter the same words. Kind of like, um, I can kind of say it's like disciple. That's how I see it, at least.
Thank you so much, April. Yeah, I agree. There's like a reflective component with call and response. Like you're reflecting, like you were saying, Sib, the leader also gives energy to those who are going to follow the line of like singing. And then that's also reflected back onto the leader, you know? How about Timmy?
Hi. When I first heard call and response, I thought of children, especially babies, and the calls being cries or screams, and the response being from the parents or caretakers, and not necessarily verbal responses, but like it could be like coming to them and trying to find what they need, like trying to figure out why they're crying, and putting efforts to stop the crying or give them what they need, whether it's food or you need to change their diapers, things like that. That's what I first thought of.
Thank you so much to me. And I'm glad you said that because I really wanted to find a way for us to think about call and response, also in like the traditional like choir sense, but also think about how call and response shows up in all these different ways in our lives. And like you said, even a baby calling out because they need a need met, like that, there's a form of call and response there, you know? So here, I have a photo, and this was taken at a funeral by this group who, I forget exactly their name, but I have it cited later on if you guys want to check into it. But you can't see in this exact photo, but there's a host of people around them. And as there's dancing, there's like a response happening from the people around them, which I feel like if here as well, you know, and oh wait, yeah, here as well. I'm gonna actually just skip this really quick. Here's a proper showing of what call and response could look like while dancing. You see what I'm saying? When you think about like even when we're twerking, when we're like moving, when we're dancing, how there will be men holding up other men to make sure they could catch the twerk. You know what I mean? That's a form of call and response. That's a form of like reflection happening during movement, during dance, during ritualisms. It's the way that we see my friend over here in the right-hand corner, egging me on as I'm throwing it back on this young man. Egging me on. There's a form of call and response there. You see what I'm saying? There's a form of like, there's a reflection happening there. I love this photo. It's from like 2019. This is like our drunk wine era. Always a wine on deck, a bag of wine on deck, and just like a lot of fun and partying and dancing. I do think there's an element in dancing and in really taking seriously what dancing is for a friend group that you do encounter call and response a lot. I'm gonna go ahead and go back to this photo. This is from the Young Men Christian Association. Call and response also in the way how we pray, how we connect with our gods, our ancestors, you know, whoever we pray to, whoever we have faith in. I'm not here to tell you who to believe in. I'm not here to tell you how to believe. I would like for you to have some faith. It doesn't have to be through religion, doesn't have to be through spirituality, but find something, have some faith in it, and find, like I was saying, that inkling of call and response of like, in order to have a call and response, you have to be in community. You have to prioritize being community. You have to, and if you want to prioritize being community, you have to prioritize conflict resolution. You have to prioritize holding grace, holding space, holding your loved ones accountable. Here, this photo, I forget the photographer's name, but like I said, in the cited resources, I have it there. But also call and response when we think about DJs and what DJs, their positionality on the dance floor is. You know, a DJ is someone, and you know, I'm not gonna get reverential about the DJ. I think I don't do the DJ discourse, but in my short stint of DJing, I had a lot of very moving experiences because it made me really appreciate performance. You know what I mean? It made me appreciate that I could choose how I like to share my sounds and like what sounds I would like to bring to an audience and have them respond to me and however those sounds made them feel, whatever expressions that brought up to them. I do believe DJs, as a lot of practitioners, not just DJs, performers, you know, people who are, there's so many different mediums. I'm only speaking on the DJ because I got experience with that one. But there is a call and response energy that's also happening within, you know, being a disc jockey, within guiding people with music, helping them get to the core of themselves, helping them to release their inhibitions, helping them to move their bodies, there is a call and response there. Also, this photo is from the Wat Revival Church in Jamaica. I think a lot about call and response as well in the ways that we hold each other when we're going through like these big tumultuous emotions. There's an aspect of call and response in the sense of like seeing someone have the spirit enter them and making sure, the same way that I was saying like with dancing, where like you see all these men who are holding up other men as someone's throwing it back on them. Like there's that same line of thinking that's happening where like this person's taken by spirit, taken by emotions, making sure that we have someone to hold them and to guide them. We can't do call and response by ourselves. We can't do grieving by ourselves. We can't do renewed life by ourselves. We actually do need one another. We do need hands holding each other. We do need hands holding us up. In the same way that we need each other in our joys, we need each other in our grievances as well. And with that, I would love to play a song that has call and response. And I feel like this is like a good way to like really confirm what I'm trying to say. Well, I'll just let it play. It's fine. Can y'all hear that? Call and response. Call and response. That's the song. That's call and response. That's what we're talking about here. I got room. Come on. We're going. I was raised in a lot of churches, so I know all the church the Jamaican ones, the Cuban ones, the African American ones. I know them all. Right. Exactly. And with that, am I still good? I feel like my Wi-Fi might be kind of a little choppy right now. How do we feel about that? Oh yes. See, that's crazy. Olivia, what did I say? By the way, also, last night I went to a B2B set of two of my best friends. And the last song was this gospel song. And I'm telling you, the crowd was turned the whole time. But the way Black people turn up when they hear a gospel song has to be studied. Has to be studied.
It's stupid.
No, Olivia, please tell them.
Stupid.
The way
My apologies
I don't know.
for talking now.
I don't know.
I'm facing the repercussions of last night as we speak. But however, yes, this is a beautiful depiction of call and response for sure. Specifically last night though. Yeah.
Yes.
It's
there's
the
been so many
it's
moments where, you know, we've raised.
Yeah. It's just like
like I also wait, you go.
Okay,
This is the issue with this.
All I was gonna say was I think it's beautiful because I mean there's so much like non-denomination reflected in DJ crowds, Black House Radio specifically, but there is something very rooted and ancestral about like a gospel call and response. And it's like you were saying, just DJs being an example of this like rhetoric. It's just like it's a very pastoral.
Yes. I don't know if it's really choppy.
Oh, it's a little choppy.
Is it choppy for you guys? I'm not sure. It might just be I have really bad Wi-Fi, so it could just be me.
Okay.
It's
okay, cool. Get on it. But yes, that's really all I had to say. I think that was a beautiful moment of call and response, and that's one of my favorite parts of participating in performance, as well as being a subject to a performer. So yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Olivia. And that I was going to follow that up with you know, when we were deep in our raving, very deep in our raving bag. I remember so many moments of like leaving the rave. And like I remember one time we left, I'm not gonna name drop them because they don't have my support. But we had left this one party, and I remember we're walking out of like this like dungeon, basically, this like graveyard of a dungeon. And we were all kind of like looking at each other and we're like, damn, it feels like we just left church. Like it feels like we just left church. And I remember so much of my work is informed by obviously by like really a lot of solitude. I love solitude. I love reading. So naturally I have to love solitude because I really enjoy reading. But a lot of my work and my music is informed by like how much I enjoy being in kinship, being with other people, dancing, music. I'm so moved by the ways of like how we hold our ancestry. And I feel like the places where I see it so clearly can be on the dance floor. It's also the places I see very clearly, like, you know, industry politics, rape apologists, where I see very clearly US imperialism. I like the dance floor is really good as like a magnifier. You're gonna see all that shit on it, you know? You're gonna see the good, the bad, and the ugly. But one thing I do really, really remember, and what I saw last night, which made me even remember it more, is like how much raving to me was a source of speaking in tongues and getting close with my ancestors. Every time I go out and I put on a outfit and I wear the part and I have on the specific clothes that are going to give a specific vibe, and I'm out there dancing under lights, red, like Elo is giving jush. And that also, I feel like a lot of our aunties and grandmas, that's how they felt about going to church, praise and worship. They was jushed up. They were jushed up. In retrospect, I'm like, oh, they was having a blast, you know? So really, really beautiful time with Olivia and Maya's set at Black House Radio, and how much it just brings like all these things are theory, but they're also lived. You know what I mean? We can't simply live in theory. We can't simply like breathe from theory. We have to live our practices. We have to share our practices. We have to make sure that we're procuring breath for the ones who look like us, our loved ones, the people who we're not kins with, but still share ideas of liberation. And with that, I'm gonna keep going forward. We're now gonna get into Malidoma Patrice Some, and he is a West African theorist, transition ancestor from Burkina Faso, from the Dagara tribe. And a big part of my work has been informed by just getting really close to the heart of his words. And I would say during 2021, I basically dealt with a lot of death where, but that year, yeah, like 2021, 2020, basically, I'll just go through the timeline. Not the quote, please, don't do me. Not the quote, not too much. But 2020, I had lost one of my best friends to suicide. And I had lost two of my cousins a few years earlier to suicide as well. One was trans, one was autistic, both demographics that hit close to home for me, as I am trans and I am autistic. And 2021, the end of 2020, my great grandmother died, which was a different type of grief. It was like grieving this large knowing that a piece of me felt like not as accessible, you know, this person who birthed all of my family that I know was losing breath. And when they passed away, it was like this piece of knowing that she wasn't in pain. She was like 98 years old, you know, like it was long life, you know. But there was like that also that component of grief where it's like I started recognizing more and more that I wanted to get closer with my roots, because when my mama passed, like we call her Mama Vera, I realized that, oh, like we are consistently under the threat of erasure. We are consistently under the threat of not knowing our customs, not knowing our lands the way that we used to know them. And it's all being pushed forward by you know, industrialization, US imperialism. We're seeing it right now in Palestine. We're seeing it right now in Turtle Island. These floods, these extreme weathers, the ways that indigenous people have not been able to take care of their land and steward the land that is immemorial to them, that is timeless to them. And now we're reaping the repercussions. Like, you know, we are on very sacred ground, and it has been compromised through US imperialism, compromised through capitalism, compromised by all these like extractive properties that we're consistently dealing with. And so now we're in an era where we're watching the crumbling happening. We're like, yes, if you chop down all the trees in a city, when it rains and it pours, there is not going to be any roots to gather that water. There's not going to be any tree stumps to help level out the water. Everything has a reaction, call and response. You're quite literally deprioritizing the land from its job, and not just job, you know, I hate to say it like in those like productive terms, but it's like its purpose. Trees have purpose, land has purpose. The way that we think about land, not us per se, but like a lot of people think about land as like this non-living entity. And even when we do have an understanding, like, you know, land is living, it's like more than land is living. The same way that we draw breath is how land is drawing breath. The reason why we draw breath is because we have land that has nurtured us, that has afforded us breath, you know? And yes, we all have purpose, same way our land has purpose, same way non-human animals have purpose. Like there needs to be an understanding that the way that we're treating and the way that we've been conditioned to treat non-humans, very nasty word. And it is a reflection of whiteness. It's a reflection of settlers being on this land and having no type of grief in their heart when they see a tree chopped down that has been here for thousands of years. I think about my land in Jamaica. I think about the land that my great-grandfather stewarded, that my great-great-grandfather stewarded, like land that my mother was born in the same place as my great-grandmother. When I think about that land being bulldozed, in my heart, something breaks. If a person doesn't have that type of relationship when they think about a land being bulldozed, that's not their land. In Palestine, people are crying about olive trees. They're not just crying about a tree. They're crying about a witness that has been there since time began. The trees, land, these are all witnesses, you know? And a big part of our grief, a big part of why we have relational value, of why we care about the people we care about, is because these people have been witnesses for us. You know, you think about your best friend who you've known since 11 years old. This person has been a witness for you. They have seen you through your emo phase, your DJ phase, your raving phase, your hard drug phase, your yoga phase, when you fucked with that one ain't shit nigga for 3 years. These are witnesses. The same way we are witnesses for one another, the same way that land is witnesses for ourselves. We have to get back to like really incorporating that thought and like stripping ourselves, because you know what I deal with a lot from a lot of people who look just like me. They tell me the way my relationship with animals and with land is a reflection of whiteness. Imagine trying to give white people something as, you know what, actually, when I start saying white people, I'm like, all right, that's reel it in. I'm gonna reel it back. We don't have a lot of time. I'm not gonna do it. But let's get to popcorn reading with the Healing Wisdom of Africa by Malidoma Patrice Some. Do we have any? Land is sibling. Land is sib. Land is mother. Land is like everything. Locks. Please, please, please. Yes, and because loving nature is a privilege. Yes, absolutely. Locks, please can you read this for us?
Yeah, what's happening, y'all? I'm actually, I might not be able to make it through the rest of the lecture, so I figured as an act of service before I go, I wanted to read. Um, can't read that well. Well, something, yeah. Just
Take
a
your
second.
time. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
This rituals of healing, correct?
Yes. Excuse me.
Song of grief must be intoned by someone and taken up by the entire village. The song must be supported by drums. Rhythms and chants are two sustaining ingredients in community rituals. Together they constitute the umbrella over overarching the community engaged in this healing journey.
Thank you so much, Lox, and thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
also, like anyone who needs to leave, please feel free. This is being recorded, so we'll obviously send out after the lecture is over. But you know, it's our Sundays. Please go about your day if you need to. No worries. I won't take it personally.
Absolutely. Thanks for the space. Enjoy the rest of y'all day.
Yes, enjoy. All right. But that has to tie in a lot with what I'm also saying with call and response, in the sense of drums being a way that we kept each other in check, drums being a way that we kept each other on rhythm and chant. Like these, making music and music making is so indigenous and it's so ingrained in our blood. And for the, just to respect time, I'm gonna go ahead and probably just read these myself. And I'll see. I think and just a heads up, it's looking like the presentation would be about an hour and a half. And then the last, and then another 30 minutes just to take questions. So that's to give an idea of how long this will be. And like I said, please feel free if you need to exit, please do. Do not let me hold you. We'll also have the recorded. Once everyone has gathered in the village, the actual grieving begins. As emotion builds up in people, they move to the shrine and release it, then return to the village to build up again. Any person who moved by emotion begins to head toward the shrine must be discreetly accompanied by someone who is not emotionally loaded in order to protect them. There's a danger that a highly emotionally charged person may not distinguish between unloading their emotions and throwing themselves bodily into the shrine. The pull to throw oneself into the shrine is so intense that someone must be there to ensure that the only emotion stays at the shrine and the person returns to the village where he or she belongs. Much praying, lamenting, and grieving takes place. People may spontaneously throw themselves to the ground, convulsing in grief. The danger for a person who's never grieved is that once he or she begins, there's an avalanche of emotion that wants to come out all at once. This obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but this ties in a lot with what I was speaking to when it comes to someone holding the guy who's getting twerked on, or someone holding the elderly woman who's speaking in tongues. We do need to have people around us that when we are deep in emotions and deep in grief and deep in spirit, we have someone sort of like, even like when you take shrooms, you like to have a little babysitter because you're on shrooms. You know what I mean? Like, it's just simple maths, like if you're going to be taken over by something that is large and unfathomable, you should have a witness to stand by and make sure that you're taken care of. And that's why we can't do grief by ourselves, because we consistently need a witness. Also, I did want to, and that's it for that passage. Yeah. Oh, yes, here. I was speaking here when they say people may spontaneously throw themselves to the ground, convulsing in grief. Also, when we think about our elders and we think about how they are when they catch a spirit in church, or how like some elders behave at funerals. Next time, instead of like, us looking at them, well, at least I'll speak for myself. I remember being a kid and being like, bro, get it together. Just get it together, my love. But now I understand, like, okay, my fault. This is deep ritualism. This is deeper than us, deep as bone. So next time that you're in a situation where you're watching someone around you having a deep movement of grief through their body, instead of having the outlook of like, you need to contain that, you need to find a container and put it in, maybe being the guiding hand that allows for them to do what they need to do to throw themselves to the ground in grief. And you just make sure there's a pillow under the ground, you know, just be the pillow. That's it. But we don't need to stop anyone in their grief. In the village itself, people, both grievers and non-grievers, sing in unison. Some dance as they feel moved to, and everybody must allow their body to swing to the melody of the chant and to the beat of the drum. Responding to music and rhythm allows emotion to build so that it can be unloaded at the shrine. It is not permitted to cultivate solemnity. Y'all got it. You know what I mean. In the village, because solemnity encourages withdrawal and suspends participation. The village is a place where energy must flow, and stillness opposes that flow. This has a lot to do with what we read earlier in Baby Suggs Meadows, how Baby Suggs invited everyone to sing, dance, cry, throw themselves on the floor, laugh. You know, the context of like how we learn about how Black people grieve and how, you know, Afro-Indigenous people grieve have really deep roots in like how we were before the disruption of chattel slavery, how we naturally like approached our grieving. Now, I'll be honest, this section of the presentation, I just want to have not so much a trigger warning as much as like, this is a place where you're going to really have to have your heart cavity open, which is why I requested that as an offering to the space. You have an open heart cavity, and this is a place where a lot of people ask me like how I do this work, where I'm like consistently wading through like the thesis of our ancestors. I'm wading through like the broken limbs. I'm wading through like chattel. A lot of my studies, I'm studying like cannibalism. I'm studying like the deep, deep bowels of chattel slavery and how that looked like materially. So I study plantation economies. So obviously with that comes a lot of grime. And I hear a lot from people like, how do I work through that? And it's like, I work through it because I really care about being a witness for my ancestors. I really care about watching them and holding their stories. And I think in making sure that I'm informed on how atrocious this was, I become an even better comrade. I become a more intimate comrade, a more intimate descendant to my ancestors and to the ones right now who look like us and look like me, who are also dealing with the same reiterations of chattel. So here we're gonna get into the unmentionables. If you need to take a second, please feel free. If you need to lead the presentation, please feel free. Take this at your own time. It's very jarring. It's very jarring confrontation, and breathe through it. It doesn't have to all be done today, you know? Return to it when you have the capacity at the recording. I would not take it personal. So first, we're going to start with these two cartoons. And this is from The Delectable Negro by Vincent Woodward, which is a book that I've been reading it for over a year now, because it's every 4 pages I have the urge to just like throw up. So it's very, very like guttural work to read it, but I also think it's like really important, and it's also like why I feel like I have a lot more joy and nourishment than the average person, because I think I'm like going into like these really disastrous like vials, heaps of vials of whiteness, and then when I reemerge, I'm just so happy to see the sun. I'm like, wow, I've just been in the deep recess pools of whiteness, and I'm just so happy to see a bird today. I'm so happy to see my cousin. I'm so happy to hang out with my cousin today. So I do think this work and this life work has like casted a spell on me where my gratitude has never been deeper. My gratitude of knowing what my ancestors and like just being someone who was a descendant of genocide. You know, I am Afro-Indigenous, so obviously I have roots in Africa and roots on Turtle Island, Xamayca. I come from a part of Jamaica that has like the only knowing remains of the indigenous people on the island, and where I'm from on the island is mostly like where you'll see the descendants of uh, the indigenous on the land, and so just feel very deeply connected with my indigeneity and also the indigeneity that I have to Africa. But these two images we have, yeah, I'm just gonna take a moment to see where I should begin. There was a time in the US where there was a article that was a newspaper that was released, and it asked the question if the US was becoming a cannibalistic nation. The reason why they were asking that question and why it was published for the whole nation to see is because there were so many instances of cannibalism happening with the enslaved Black people that was on the land. And so when I came to this work, when I knew that I needed to get deeper into this work, is because I was having like a lot of visions, and I was having like a lot of dreams where it didn't feel like dreams anymore. It felt like visions where I was seeing ancestors, I was seeing how they were being reprimanded. And I would say the most stark one was I was reading Malodoma of Water and Spirit, and I was in airport jail, right? I was in airport jail. That I won't get into that, but somewhere in like, it was like one of those Nordic countries, like Sweden, Holland, I don't know. One of those. And I remember like feeling like my ancestors were not gonna let me leave this land until I finished this book. And I had a vision the night before where someone was hung by they were hung by their rib cage. They were just like hung by their rib cage. And I woke up so jarred by it that like later on, and how I ended up in airport jail, it was just like your typical like being discriminated against. But because I had that like very specific type of vision, I was like, actually, I'll go to jail. Because y'all had niggas fucked up for too long. I'm not taking off my monkey mask. I had on a monkey headgear because I'm autistic, like I said, and like need like a lot of coziness on me. And I was like, I'll take jail. But that put me onto a path of needing to read more into the ways our bodies have been diced up by whiteness. And that's when I found the book, The Delectable Negro, which is this right here. So in the first photo we see, and it's a cartoon that was published in the French journal L'Erreur in 1911, and it demonstrates how European hungers for conquest coincided with homosexual hunger for African flesh. And so we see a porter, we see a soldier, a general that's gathered on a Bakongo man, which is in this day a Congolese person, and is stabbed into a skewer. And as the Bakongo man is spun around, he awaits the slice of the butcher knife. And yeah, it goes to show, and also you can see the Congo on his yeah. And around this time there was a lot of I'm gonna actually need some time. Yes, it's all This is my first time also presenting. A lot of this work, I'm like reading it in like the comfort of my bed and cozy, and so like I'm holding a lot. I've never, and I talk to my friends about it, but I've never presented this work before. So I guess I'm also learning about the rest points I'm gonna have to give myself, and I will keep that in mind for my next presentation. But one thing that we see a lot with whiteness is, and we see it right now in Palestine, where with Israeli forces and how they'll basically like every accusation is a confession. And so here there was like a lot of talk of like Africans and indigenous people of Turtle Island being cannibals and like being these savages. And now there's an understanding where like the places that those accusations came from is because of like the rich history that Europeans have with human consumption. It's something that's a part of their, you know, just part of their histories. I'm sure it's a part of some histories in Africa and in, you know, Turtle Island as well. But it does kind of point to where, because there's so much shame that's like doused in European histories and legacies, that the only way they could like really confront their own horrors is by projecting it on other people. And the second one that we have is a cartoon that was published in 1937 in the Belgian magazine Hoeker Leven, and it also depicted Europeans' cannibalism. And the caption says, as you can see, they're making a soup, and it's a bunch of enslaved our ancestors in the soup. And then the caption says, "Any takers for Negro soup?" And these cartoons are kind of depicting the relationship that whiteness has with blackness, and that whiteness has with the black vessel, where it's like, this is something to be consumed, this is something to be, just like the cattle, sliced and diced and have different names. It also has a lot to do with like how we think about even how Nat Turner, he led some rebellions in antebellum US South, how his remains were used, everything was used. So his like, he was made into oil. A lot of the enslaved people at the time, there was like a myth that was like, don't use any of the oil because it has Nazis, like Nats remnants in it. How our fingernails have also, like, I remember my grandmother used to save her fingernails, and there's like a legacy there where fingernails were used, our fingernails were taken off and like put on to, you know, acrylics. Think about George Washington, teeth made of wood. No, those teeth are from enslaved people, you know, like really thinking about the material realities of like, if this person is not a human, we could use every part of them with no repercussion. That means the hair has been like, we're still seeing Afro hair come out of cushion, like out of chairs, like it being used as cushion. Every part of our ancestors was dispensable to any whim of whiteness. Here I'm gonna kind of go quickly because we're kind of cutting it short on time. I do really want to get through these slides. So like I said, whoever could stay, whoever can't, no problem. Here's some excerpts. For example, within plantation culture, this culture of consumption took the form of whites literally flaying and smoking African-American flesh, and overt references in slave narratives to masters literally and metaphorically consuming their slaves. For the slave, this culture of consumption was a fact of daily life, as was amply documented in slave narratives, work progress administration, WPA, interviews of ex-slaves, letters, political treaties, autobiographies from the antebellum period. So there is documentation. Also with chattel slavery, there's like this kind of mystifying that happens, like this mysticism of like, they were just some slaves and like they had it hard and da da da. But like these are widely documented crimes. You know, like chattel slavery wasn't something that was like, it was highly organized. The same way we see the US is highly organized with our taxes, is how they're organized with their property. One thing about white people, they're going to have they're going to have a trail of documentation. So thinking about what's in the attics of our white peers, what family heirlooms are being passed down to them, what documents are being passed down to them that are stored in their attics, that are stored in their basements. And I think that also has a reflection of like, that are also stored in the subconscious of white people. This question, I thought it was really poignant. How does it feel to be an edible, consumed object? In other words, how does it feel to be an energy source and foodstuff to be consumed on the levels of body, sex, psyche, and soul? Yeah, so like really understanding that, exactly. Yeah, a lot of hate, but that hate is like a deep fetish, a deep fetish. And Jer, I'm glad you said that because this also reminded me of that one story that you had. And I would love for you to share that actually, if you feel compelled to. But the story when you were on the bus and you told me this white man was like screaming for like black dick, if I remember clearly. And I was telling you about the Delectable Negro and like how you have to read it because like so much of that reflects in that story. Okay, I'm gonna take the silence as maybe, oh no, we can't hear you. Let me see. Jay, you just gotta unmute because I think everyone's allowed to unmute, so it should be fine.
I can also try and unmute them.
Yeah, please.
Oh, Jera, you're actually unmuted, by the way. Maybe it's your mic.
Oh, dang, hate that. Okay, yeah, we'll just have Jared type it. I could go ahead and read that out. So Jared says, short story, but basically, I was taking the train one day and this white man came on clearly in some psychosis, but was wailing and crying out for black dick. Like going around the train crying out, asking for it. It was really disturbing. Ooh, thank you so much, Jewel, for that boost. Gonna definitely add that to my. Yeah, and when Jera, this is also a time when Jera told me the story. This had to be like a couple years ago now. This is like when I was first starting to read and like getting research from the Delectable Negro. And so when Jera told me this story, I was so moved by how like I was seeing the text in real life. And I was very moved because I was like recognizing like, oh, like black flesh will always be a commodity and it will always be a place where the psyche of whiteness like feeds off of and returns to, you know, like it's in the same way that they hate it, they have to have it. They cannot be told no about it. They need the drums, they need our music. And I'm gonna talk about this later on, which I really hope some of y'all could stay, especially the artists, the black artists here, because I really want to talk to you guys about how our likability, our likeness, how our art has this direct link that is reflecting chattel and auctions with our with fine arts, DJing, music, industry. I found like this really poignant line that I'd like to connect for everyone. Let's continue. And then this is beautiful because it really wrapped in. I was so moved when like I was reading this Delectable Negro, and like I found Tony in his writing as well. By the way, Vincent Woodward is this amazing ancestor. He's transitioned. He was a queer theorist, and so his Delectable Negro, the full name of it is homoeroticism. Wait, I think I actually have it somewhere in here. Let's see. Maybe not. It's like U.S. slave culture and homoeroticism. So like what his specific interest was thinking about all the ways that rape was just happening in terms of men, and how a lot of what we see now is, and this is why I don't know if anyone's watched Slave Play, but he needs to be dealt with. He needs to be dealt with. He needs to be dealt with. Because thank you so much, Marley. Like I said, definitely check out the recording. But anyways, let's get back to this. Let's get back on. Let's get it through. We're almost done with the presentation. Thank you guys for being patient. Thank you guys for still being here. A horrific dimension of African American experience, and obviously this is speaking in the terms of U.S. antebellum South, but this transcends obviously the African American experience. This touches all corners of the diaspora. This touches all corners of Africa in general. Like the people who are not left, but people who stayed in Africa also have been. I don't think there's like an understanding that like, no, just because they didn't like get on the boat, like they were haunting those niggas in the motherland. You know what I mean? Like right there. So we all have these wounds to hold. But a horrific dimension of African American experience that is difficult, if not almost impossible, to put into language. Toni Morrison referred to this region of African American experience as the unspeakable, and that's why I like to call this body the unmentionables, where it's the things where we're not keen to speak up on. It's also like how we treat sexual abuse within our family dynamics, is how we treat like anything that has some sort of shame. But the one that really stands clear to me is sexual abuse, as I like was largely sexually abused most of my childhood by multiple people. And it's something that I have never said in a room before like this. You know what I mean? Which is why I'm so grateful for this work, because I think this work is touching deeper to the places where I haven't locked them away, but I've been in therapy since I was 19 years old. So just like the places where I've allowed myself to grieve these places, but I think grief is eternal. I would love to hold that grief and hold the ways that my sexual agencies have been robbed from me, and think about them in a historical lens, and think about them with the understandings of like, I am not the first to hold this grief. I'm not the first to hold this weight. And I will not be the last. And thank you guys for holding space here. It doesn't feel difficult. It's just crazy. Like I feel very held. And like I said, I'm just really grateful to know that the ways that we've thought about silence with the unmentionables in our lives is just a reinterpretation of whiteness, and it doesn't need to be the case. Moving forward, yes, I'm glad everyone's feeling good. So that was a lot, you know what I mean? And I knew that would be a lot, and there's more to go, but I did want to just have a moment for us to take a breath, a collective breath, as that was very, I'm sure that is bringing up a lot of discomfort right now for you, maybe shame, pain, guilt, sorrow, maybe like grief that you think will never be, can never be resolved. And that's why I'm saying Afromediation is not about the resolve, it's about the unraveling. It's about there being a space where we can have these places that are dedicated to our griefs, that are dedicated to our joys. And it's not, you can only be joyous here. You could be your full embodied self. And a spectral embodied breath is from my accompanying theory, spectral lens, which I coined about the same time when I started doing all this like work. But spectral is related to or made by a spectrum, and embodiment is a tangible or visible form of idea, quality, feeling, and that's why I coined the term spectral embodiment, really wanting to embody the full spectrum of our humanness, and even the things that also feel non-human to us. And a quick synopsis of the spectral lens theory. I won't get too deep into it. You'll have to come to another lecture. But this theory speaks on embodiment of the senses as a way to navigate our inner dark rooms, and transmute them into the material world. So like as someone was saying here earlier, I did see something in the text of grief being a guide. Yes, I would say a lot of my life work and the theory that I'm writing down has been guided by unimaginable grief, has been guided by the deaths. I had like 4 very close loved ones die in the midst of like 2-3 years. So it has been like this gift, obviously, that I feel like I am a comrade to grief. I feel deeply moved by grief. I feel deeply moved by my darkness. I feel just very honored that I get to like walk with this grief. And I don't know, I feel like if darkness and grief and we all come from the same place, like I was in the sandbox with grief, and I was in the sandbox with darkness, and that has been a witness through every life, through every iteration of spirit that I've had. It's been here. I know of it well. I could give into my darkness because I know my darkness is only here to renew me and to offer me different life. And I hope you guys can hold that dear to you, because I know we are all going through massive grief on the personal level and collective level. And that's all to say that like grief is eternal, and it doesn't have to, like grief does not have to be a death sentence, you know? And if it's gonna be a death sentence, then we can use a definition of death where it's like grief is renewal and more life. So everyone right now, just take a second to take a breath. And I'm going to play a song. Selfless shame, like shameless self-plug. This is from my new album, which just got released today. Today. Yes, look at the hearts. Yes, I wish we had a bop, bop, bop in here. Woo! But just released my new album, which is called Home Stretch. And I'm so proud of it. It's one of my cutest works left. It's like this little cutie pie. It just feels like such a little cutie pie. But this song is called The Unfudgeable Token of Liquid Blackness. I think that's what it's called, something like that. And we'll get into that later on in the lecture. But while we're taking a breath, I would love for us to hum and take a breath with this track in the background. Okay. Thank you so much. This is a short interlude. I hope we're feeling a little bit more centered. I know we just went through some really heavy context of what our histories look like and what some of our present days look like as well. And with that, we are almost wrapped up. Hold out a little while longer. I promise you it's worth it. Yes. Oh yes, let me link you guys. Hello. It's mad cute. I'm gonna be real with you. It's mad cute. I did the mixing and mastering by myself, by the way, which like I know we're not all like tech heads here, but it's really fucking hard. Like not hard. It's just like tedious. And like also when you're trans, like and you're like hearing your voice, and it's like, oh my God, why do I sound like a female? I'm giving female behavior, like that's not even me. So that was a lot. I was just dealing with like a lot of dysphoria, which was really nice because I like worked through a lot of feelings of dysphoria. And now I feel like my transness has like encapsulated like less about presentation and physicality and more just about spirit. So, but here it is. Here it is. Here it is. There you go. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate all the kind words. All right, let's keep moving on. Let's build a body map before we get back into the unmentionables. Can you guys think about how your limbs feel in this moment? Maybe have a moment to think about where has your body gone? Have you left your body? You know, I know a lot of us when we're dealing with like a lot of uncomfortable and rightly so, it's deeply horrific information, we tend to abandon our bodies. I urge you in this moment, if you have left your body, to return. Your body is a safe haven. Your body is a safety net for you. Your body is someplace where you can always return to until one day that you can't. And then you get a whole different vibe. But for now, this is somewhere, this is a container for you to live your expressions and to leave when you want, you know, like I love leaving my body, you know, I love a good out of body experience. But I like to have out of body experiences where it's not in response to discomfort. It's like, it's in response because I want to go explore outside of my body. Can we think about how our heart rates are feeling right now? Like maybe hold our chest. How's your heart feeling? My rate is pretty, honestly, I would say pretty nice and calm. I'm not feeling much anxiety. I am having a lot of deep heartbeats right now, which I think happens whenever I speak on these unmentionables. Maybe thinking about how the unmentionables are affecting your breath in this moment. A big part of Afromediation is practicing decolonizing our responses to grief, and that can be done through the spectral lens theory, which, like I said, I don't have that today, but I actually will. I could link you guys to a presentation I did with the SciArc Foundation earlier this year, and where I talk more about spectral lens theory. So I'll just link that right now. And I'm sure that we'll have all these links ready for you in an email after this. Okay. Continuing on. All right. This is where we're gonna get like a little bit heady, and where we're gonna get out of spirit and more into the material realities. Not much more to go. Stick with me here. We're almost done, but I think this is very important because a lot of us are artists, a lot of us are writers, a lot of us are very creative, deeply touched, deeply moving work. And I really need to show y'all the research that I have that shows a lot of us are being regurgitated in the same transatlantic slave trade of, now it's not technically like our labor in the sense of like maybe physical when it comes to like art practices. Like, you know, I know a lot of us come from like working class backgrounds, some of us don't, some of us come from different sociopolitical backgrounds, but at the end of the day, especially us living in the imperial core, we might not be touching the realities of like someone living outside of the imperial core. Up for interpretation, I don't have that completely clear yet, but I know what I'm saying. So Negro liquidity, which is cited from this essay that I read, that also is a big part of why this theory even came about. The Unfungible Flow of Liquid Blackness, Unfungible Flow of Liquid Blackness by R.A. Judy. This essay was presented to me by an ex-lover of mine, and it was like one of the essays they ever sent to me. I read this essay, promise you I fell in love with them. Promise to God, literally fell in love with them because of this essay. I was like, oh no, not you just changed my whole relationship with like my art practice. It was that crazy, like crazy. I've never fallen in love with someone strictly off of an essay, but it was like that. It was that serious. And although, you know, it did not last, everything lasts. It lasts in the ways of like that I'm here with you right now, presenting this work with you. So let's get through this very thinking of time. I would love to get you the questions in, so I want to give you all that time. This paraphrase of Marx's remark in The Poverty of Philosophy: without slavery, you have no cotton. Without cotton, you have no modern industry, emphasizes the centrality of Negro liquidity in the accumulation of the monetary wealth that financed capitalism's industrial expansion. Basically, the modern industries that we have right now, as we all know, in like, you know, layman's term, is on the backs of Black people. But when we get to the material reality of like, without slavery, we do not have the cotton. Without cotton, we don't have the cotton gin. Without the labor put into the cotton gin, we do not have the modern industries now. Without the modern industries now, we do not have McDonald's. Without slavery, we do not have McDonald's. Without slavery, we do not have, listen, anything you think of, we don't have it. Because the basis of modern industry, there's colonialism, there's industrialism that was birthed from colonialism, that is birthed from there's this new, not new, slavery's as old as time, but because there's like this specific type of slavery, chattel slavery, where there's no repercussions, you're born into slavery, there is now a new understanding of how much work can be done, which is now why we have modern industries. The reason why we have industrialism come into play is because after the abolishment of slavery, there was now a standard of how much work could be done in a day, because quite literally you could work a slave to death, an enslaved person to death, right? So now what we need are industries with very, very poor people who have no rights, pay them extremely cheap labor so it could still make not as much as the enslavement of Africans, but still touch it, right? Does that make sense to everyone? So sweet. I'm hoping that makes sense for everyone. I know I went through that very quickly, but just want to think about time. I want to have you guys out of here soon.
It does.
Yes? Okay, good. Planters, now let's talk about our credit score. We all have credit scores, right? Some of us down the depths. Some of us, we're working on them. Some of us, we have a good one. The credit score comes from Negro liquidity. Here. Planters wishing to borrow capital from the association first acquired shares by mortgaging their slaves and land. They were entitled to then borrow up to 50% of the mortgage property value in CAPL banknotes, used to finance the expansion of their cotton production. Like I said before, without slavery, you have no cotton. Without cotton, you have no cotton gin. Without no cotton gin, you have no modern industry. It's very important to think about the cotton gin, because before the cotton gin was invented, there was enough abolition happening where slavery was kind of being contested upon. And then with the booming of the cotton gin, which that was from the blooming of Marie Antoinette when she got into cotton, this has a lot to do with why we have like why we have these like understandings of like coquette and like, you know, like those cottage kind of feels. With Marie Antoinette, what she basically did, she in her own was very revolutionary. I'm not going to do too much. It was very revolutionary of like, she consistently confronted the French customs of like this large way of life. Not through, I'm not saying through her, because she was a large way of life type of bitch. I mean more of like when after she had children, she got into this like era of wearing a lot of cotton. When she started wearing cotton, that became a huge trend within Europe. And thus, we have the cotton gin being birthed. And thus, we have a rebirth of this chattel slavery of like, not only is it needed, like, you know, there's so many different farmings that was happening. We have cane, sugar cane, we have, you know, coffee, rubber in Congo, like it's everything. But with that cotton gin needing to be made after it got popularized by Marie Antoinette during her demure phase, you know, like cutesy phase, we have the cotton gin. And you have to remember, back in the day, it's not an enslaved person is working the cotton gin. The enslaved person is a piece of the cotton gin, because these people had no humanity. Our ancestors had no humanity. So the cotton gin is incomplete without the enslaved labor from the Negro. Is that making sense? Are we getting that? Okay, cool. These banknotes were secured by large cash reserve raised with the sale of bonds and financial markets throughout the United States and Europe. Like I said, this is not some mystical thing. This is not like, oh, it kind of happened. You have to remember, this is highly organized. The same way we see our taxes are highly organized. One thing about white people, they are not going to let a dollar slip from their eyes. This right here is a banknote, a single CAPL bond that had the face value of about $500, which was about the average market price for a young Negro male at the time. And when you would secure this with your credit, you would build your credit with these banknotes, excuse me, and then eventually they would reach maturity. So sorry, in 10 to 15 years, yielding their investors 5% in annual interest. So this at this point is like this is a stock. This is Black people as a stock. Not only are we being used as and this is obviously very much a U.S. centric understanding of it, but you do have to realize the same like routes that the state of the United States is using. This is being used all over South America. This is being used all over the Caribbean. This is not just, you know, we can't look at this as like it happened one place and it was happening one place. No, nothing works like that. Things are happening right now. Right now we are in this room and we're talking about Negro liquidity, and I look outside, there's people walking along. It's all relational, right? Negro liquidity was thus a significant component of a collateralized credit market, which is how we have our credit score, to spread the financial risk of expanding entrepreneurial-driven growth in cotton and sugar agriculture, while also generating the financing needed to fuel that growth. Negro liquidity was thus a significant component of a collateralized credit market, which spread, anyways. The $500 market price for a young Negro male reflected in the face value of a single CAPL bond being sold in the Western world's financial markets. This bond that we see here, right? It was a monetization of the material energy embodied by the Negro as an asset. So $500 as a bond could get you all the life energy of a Negro in that moment. We've got to put that together. Whatever the number arrived at, whether 500 or 1,500, it signified the cost of acquiring the Negro asset, which is the breath of the Negro. That's the asset that we're talking about right now. Asset is breath. Asset is our flesh, and not the surplus value generated by his productive energy. In other words, while the Negro was, in certain respects, a fixed capital asset essential to the generation of profit, the Negro's liquidity was a financial asset that in and of itself was a source of wealth. I know that's a lot of words, it's a lot of language. It took me a few times to read it over to like really grasp it. So please, I really, exactly, like purchasing a machine. That's what I'm trying to make very clear here. The cotton gin, the thought of an enslaved person, you were purchasing cattle, a machine. It's okay if they drop dead from the labor. It's a machine. I really want you guys to take that seriously. Take that essay seriously. That was also in the readings, but that was like a suggested reading. But after this, I would love for you guys to read it. Especially my artists, especially my fine art artists, especially the ones who are doing the paintings and the like anyone who's finding themselves in fine art spaces, you need to read that essay. I'm not going to say it again. You need to read the essay because as someone who's making music, I'm kind of on some guerrilla shit. I'm making music. It's the industry's there's enough democracy where like I don't have to be a part of a label. I don't have to like I dropped my album by myself on my own account. I'm not doing a rollout. I have a lot of agency in how my work is being sent off. A lot of you who are in the art world, you don't have that same movability. I'm not saying you can't have that movability, but before you can have that movability, you need to know the start. I'm like, you need to understand if you're moving between LA, New York, and European capital cities for your work, you have now put yourself in a transatlantic slave trade. You are moving between a triangular point, LA, New York, and European capitals. Not to get Dr. Umar in here, but you see what that makes? If your art practice is leading you to this is where you have to go to meet your audiences, you need to think about what this is reflecting, right? Let's get into it. So how does that tie in with you as a Black artist showing and selling your life's work? I'm gonna keep quoting this essay. It's just so good. I don't need to say much more than it. In 1850, the accumulated slave assets had a market value of 1.3 billion, which was 80% of the total cash market of the South and 1/5 of the wealth of the United States as a whole, nearly equaling its gross national product. By 1860, those assets had increased to 2 billion. 2 billion. Needless to say, now imagine without the abolishment of slavery. In a decade, 1.3 billion to 2 billion. They were not trying to let this go. They were not. Needless to say, the 1863 emancipation without compensation effectively eliminated Negro liquidity, precipitating a severe system-wide crisis in the credit market. Be that as it may, the system of credit financing based on Negro liquidity will find an iteration of sorts in the 21st century art market, where ownership of Black expression provides collateral for raising capital. I also quote by R. Judy, art, however, does not have anywhere near the liquidity the Negro did. In fact, it is notoriously illiquid. That is to say, they can't even make a fraction of the money they made off of our total liquidity. But what they can do is make something off of our art and expression, right? Stay with me here. This is, if you don't get anything from this presentation, you need to get this. You need to get this. Here we have Artamundi, which is a investment strategy corporation, and on their site it says art tokenization that allows you to own and trade fractional ownership of fine art masterpieces in a regulated and transparent marketplace. Y'all, what the fuck does that sound like to you? Can I hear some responses? Please unmute. What does that sound like to you? Anyone? No one? Okay, I'll say it.
This is like a market, right? Like a stocks and bonds market. It also sounds a lot just like in bare bones, like a slave market, where we would be selling parts of ourselves or what is seen to be valuable within yourself by
Thank you so much.
customers.
Thank you. Couldn't say any better than myself. When I came to this research and when I made those connections, that is when I started divesting from Instagram. That's when I started divesting from brands. That's when I started saying no to any corporation. I got hit up a year ago to sign with Rock Nation. I said no to that one too, because I was recognizing, oh, the chattel slave market was removed. And what we have now is our music industries, our fine art industries, anything you think of when it comes to expression, especially with Black expression, it is coming from the fact that they need to make up for that they're not making as much money as they made off of our quite literally our breath, liquidity, right? Exactly. Commodities. Thank you so much. With this as well, also some of the axioms of Artemundi's investment strategy, I'm quoting R.A. Judy on this, listed on its website, one that resonates sharply with the 19th century credit financing system based on negro liquidity, and that it rules to only, guys, it rules to only acquire artworks, in quotations, acquire artworks, it's said by them, acquire artworks in which we can apply appreciation strategies. I need us to be very serious about the ways things are spun. Appreciation strategies is a very, very sinister way to say we could use appreciation in the name of this artist's brand, which is what they like to call it. And that brand is based off of how do a lot of Black people get their work? We're in these tokenized spaces during Black History Month. We're getting all our gigs. You gotta remember the value is in the fact that you are an artist and you are Black. It's not even, no, not that you are an artist. It's because you are Black. In other words, your Blackness has some liquidity, and that is what these institutions are looking for, right? Art tokenization that allows you to own and trade fractional ownership of fine art masterpieces in a regulated and transparent marketplace. It is an auction. It is an auction. Did you have a question? Did you want to say something? Yes, please.
Yeah, like I really just wanted to chip in and say that talking about the liquidity of Blackness shows how, like, as cultural commodities, our source can easily become extracted. Like, they're literally taking the swag and turning it into a formulaic thing that they can then duplicate and no longer need Black people to create. Like, we see it in hip hop, we're soon going to see it in Afrobeats, we're seeing it in all forms of the culture. Like, they consume it to a point where it's no longer art. I think liquidity
AI.
of Blackness, yeah, like it's so extracted to the point where the source is no longer existing. It's sort of
Yeah.
like making white paint from Black skin.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that. But and we're gonna see a lot in AI. I don't know if you guys watched Carol and Tuesday, this like anime. It puts it like very clear as well. Like, check it out. Check it out. It's like a cutesy anime, but I really appreciate the tones that it had around thinking about AI and song making and songwriting. But yes, all the things, right? So gonna keep going here. Oh, by the way, I drew this. I forgot to say that. I sketched this. This like little thing that you see in the back. That's me. I sketched it. I wanted to use it in my presentation. Anyways, the increasing speculative value of Black art, both private and institutional collectors, ever so resembles that of the 19th century antebellum factorage firms financing slave liquidity. It's like, it actually is too easy. It's too easy to like recognize. And that is something that I'm very cognizant of. I really love my art practice. I really enjoy my art practice. I really love expression. My art practice is like breath to me. It's like breathing underwater. I cannot live without my art practice, which is why I cannot sign my name to just anything, which is why I cannot be reflecting the same realities that my ancestors and that today, in this day, are subjugating my people. It is why I have to say no to Lacoste, why I have to say no to this brand, why I cannot model anymore. I had to quit modeling. I had to actually take a huge review of the ways that I was being in this back and forth call and response with the things that have raw breath from my ancestors. Is it easy to say no? No. But does there become, it gets erotic. The more you start saying no, guys, it gets very erotic. I'm 2 years into saying no to a lot of people. I said no to $90,000 last year. I'm in a very, the no's are getting erotic. My pussy feels like a diamond. I'm saying no to a lot of things. When you start saying no to a lot of things, you know what happens? Anyone who has a pussy here, who doesn't, that's fine. Your pussy starts feeling like a diamond. Okay? You take 1 year of celibacy, you know what starts happening? When like you walk into a room and you look good as fuck, but you know no one could take you home. No one could take you home. You start feeling like a diamond. Now I'm not here. I don't believe in. I'm just here to say the more we exercise no, especially with these corporations, the more integrity and the more confidence that we can have in ourselves as artists, as practitioners, as descendants. You see what I'm saying? That is what we're here for. A part of our purpose is to make sure we lay our ancestors to rest, right? I think we could all agree that we want to make sure our ancestors have some fucking rest. The ones who were zombified, and our children, the ones who were zombified, who never got to sleep. From 6 months old, 7 months old, they're being used as alligator bait. If they live, they're on the fields. You see what I'm saying? This Afromediation is a call for, it's deeper than rest. It's deeper than rest. The English language can't even encapsulate what I really need us to be doing for ourselves. Let's continue on. In the article, the essay, he talks about this moment. With respect to the so-called Negro, we could say there's multiple semiosis at play. And there's fluidity, there's expression, there's breath, like all the things that, the spillage that like whiteness cannot contain, that is where Blackness, that's where indigeneity, that's like where anything outside of whiteness will perpetually exist, will always exist. It's a perennial of itself. It's always blooming. That's why I say death is not the end game. Afromediation is not an end game. This is a perennial. This is a blooming. This is something that you could bloom with it. And you take your other theories and you add your theories to it. Shit, you make your own fucking theory. All a theory is really is that you've made a connection, and everywhere you're looking, no one has put it together. We could all be theorists here because we all come from very, very expansive, very dynamic backgrounds, and we all have something to say. You see what I'm saying? So with all this dynamic, and parasympathetic fluidity provides for this dynamic possibilities of expression that can only be bound by the limits of a human imagination. Like Baby Suggs was saying, the only type of like love that you can receive is the love that you can imagine. That's why I said earlier, if you're dreaming, I can almost bet you need to dream bigger, right? And then when we get poiesis, Aristotle called this activity poiesis when it's like a proactive creation and performance of experimental forms of expression. And he described it as having possibilities. So like even in the blues, taking up a poiesis, this is a term of being at the crossroads, where it was looked at as like a devil, but also the crossroads, that's Eshu, that's Papa Legba. Who's at the crossroads? Who meets us at the gatekeep? Who gatekeeps our crossroads? Papa Legba, Eshu. This is the places where we slip, where we have poiesis. So any activity that's perpetually flying away from the capitalist commodification of life is poiesis in Black, right? Go on to say, this is from my own annotations as I was reading this essay. I was thinking the blues, devil music, Papa Legba, May You Rise, and then also thinking about TWEAKS, because the way I think about TWEAKS is very much like, you know, love TWEAKS. I've had a great time at TWEAKS. I'm having a good time at TWEAKS. But does TWEAKS, do I wake up and I'm TWEAKS? No, I wake up and I'm quite literally Zoe. TWEAKS is someone that I brought in after I had suffered a really traumatic rape. And TWEAKS is someone where I had dealt with so many deaths where like I was walking through this industry and like recognized that I need something to buffer. Like, not everyone needs to be calling me by Zoe. Not everyone needs to be calling by my name. You don't know me. My name was given to me by my grandmother. You don't know me like that, you know, just grubby. So there's TWEAKS, where TWEAKS is like a bit more refractory. TWEAKS is embodied to be able to withstand extreme heat, extreme backlash, extreme disaster. And TWEAKS is an embodiment of perisimosis. What I'm trying to do with my art practice and what I'm trying to do with TWEAKS is to be perpetually flying away from the capitalist commodification of life, right? And I think we could all find ways to do that in our own practices. This is the penultimate closing grounds. We are almost done. And I'm going to just go over Time Maroonage by Bayo Akomolafat. And he is also a West African theorist, still here with us. I'm gonna just say I wouldn't, this is still a man. So some of his interpretations are questionable. He's still a man. Abiruba, still a man, questionable. I'm not going to amplify this man's like total integrity, because I do feel like there's places where I'm like, there needs to be some checks and balances. But no, Ty. Still yes, Bio, because I mean, so much of Bio's work is so deeply intuitive and has been so deeply shifting for me in my practice. So it's not even on that. It's just very much like same way that you guys need to be in relation to me right now, that like I have blind spots, I have faults. You might not agree with every part of my practice, every part of what I'm saying, but like still affording grace of like knowing what to take and what to leave. Same thing that I'm doing with Bio, knowing what to take and what to leave. I think he's brilliant, all the things. So he talks about time maroonage is the process of extricating oneself from slavery. Rest as fugitivity, it moves us away from sites of productivity, right? Also like what R.A. Judy was talking about with Poiesis and Black, removing ourselves from these like historical legacies of chattel slavery. What is maroonage? Bio muse, my mind is immediately taken to the escapades, the agency, the history of slaves, and how they suffered not just in the United States, but in Brazil and other places across the Caribbean, but how they often perform escape, how they remove their bodies from the labor of the plantation. This act of doing that, refusing the terms of captivity, is called maroonage. I would like for all of us to think about our art practices as a journey of maroonage. What can you implement in your art practice where it becomes a journey of maroonage? Since we're still dancing with themes from plantations and ideas of maroonage and slavery and slave ships, I mean to say that one never leaves a plantation with his head held high. I love that Bayou right now is musing on like, how would one escape a plantation? We are now being put in a place where let us put ourselves in the bodies, in the flesh of someone who is escaping a plantation. The posture of maroonage is scurrying by, it's hiding, it's squeezing oneself through cracks, it's becoming animal. The posture in this is that the posture of arrival, the posture in this, ignore that. That the posture of arrival of the gentleman, of the elitist, right? Of the citizen, but the posture of the fugitive bent, and basically what they were talking about is like someone like erect, you know what I mean? But the posture of a fugitive is bent and animalistic. It's animist, it's vitalist. It's more in keeping with the elements. You want to hide and to render yourself as invisible as possible in order to escape the plantation. When we're thinking about our art practices, when we're thinking about visibility, we have to step away from thinking representation politics is going to save us. A seat at the table is not going to save us. This is my opinion. If you disagree, I would like to hear why. But visibility is a Ouroboros. Whatever makes you visible also renders you unsafe. Visibility is something that you have to consistently feed. We see it a lot with our Instagrams. You get a little bit of followers. What does you start feeling? You start feeling like, damn, niggas are really, I have to now perform. I have to now be an image. Earlier when we were talking before we got here, I was saying how we have to kill our images. When I divested from Instagram, it felt like killing an image, killing a projection of what people had an idea of me, of who I was because of who I was on my Instagram. I feel more full in myself now without that image. That image cannot encapsulate who I am. That image is a ghost remnant of like everything that lives within me, right? Time ruinage, Bio explained, is all the ways that we do not fit within a clock time, not reducible to intentions, not a project of activists, but all the ways that we are molecularly called away from universal time. For instance, the American Psychological Association in its 2022 publication basically says that healthy grief happens within 1 year. So grief becomes a product. Grief is tethered to a notion of time, which is already in service to capitalism. You see what I'm saying? We have to slip out of this. We have to get into slippage. We have to really renown our grief because it is one of the last sites of rebellion for us. To say, I'm not going to grieve this for only a year and then move on. I'm going to grieve this for the rest of my life. Grief is eternal. I honor grief as something that's eternal to me. You give it that space. And that does not mean grief is centered in your life. That means grief is allowed in your heart cavity. It's allowed to be here. You know what I mean? The more you accept grief and devastation and the death of your loved ones, the more it decenters itself on its own. It does it by itself. Trust me. Don't even like, you think that you go into your darkness and you'll never come out of it. You think that if I cry about this, I'll be crying and I'll be wailing for the rest of my life. That could be true, but I'm telling you, it's not the case. Unfortunately, we are fickle people. And with the deeper realms of tragedy are the deeper reservoirs of care and joy. And that's what I'm saying. Get an art practice where you're studying something that has to do with offering your ancestors rest. The more rest I've offered my ancestors, you could ask my friends right now, I ask for something, it's immediately given to me. Immediately. No contest. The more work you do for your ancestors to lay them to rest, the easier this like waking life of a capitalistic schism of pain gets. Tether yourself to something like that, you know? Like I said, please do you, but. And then this is the closing grounds. Thank you guys so much for being here with me. Thank you for staying. Thank you for listening. Thank you for having your critique. Thank you for the places that you feel moved. I'm really excited to just see how this theory acts as a bomb for all the things that I know we're holding on to. And I would love to just have our shoulders be slewed off, you know? This is the closing grounds. Stick with me. It's the last thing. It's from an essay that I wrote when I first divested from Instagram. This is also after I was called out. I was called out end of 2022, December 2022, for abusive behavior, for aggression, inappropriate behavior, which there are, like, as these things go, there are realms where, like, of course, there's harm happening on both sides. Of course, I am someone who is capable of harm. I'm capable of perpetuating harm. And I think with accountability, it's like understanding the things that I will hold space for, of like, yes, I caused harm here, and also having a clear boundary of what I will not apologize for. I will not apologize for going public about my rapist. I will not apologize for going public about my abusive ex-situationship, quasi-situationship that was still touring with said rapist. I will not apologize about the ways that I needed to make it very clear to folks that actually I will not take this type of move in my life no more. I will not allow people to trample on very vulnerable, very raw moments of, like, I'm dealing with death, I'm dealing with grief, I'm dealing with very real life implications of breath. And yes, it is not tidy enough for industry. It's not tidy enough for Instagram. It's not tidy enough for the DJ world. It's not tidy enough. It's in slippage. It's maroonage. I will not apologize for that. Other things, sure. That's no. And then I go on to say in this essay, which I'll also link you guys to, it was the first essay that I wrote that's going to be published in my upcoming book. There's Porch on the Stove, which I just got a publisher on board, and I'm going to be doing like a lot of the editing this month. But yeah, excited to have that out for you guys. So everything I'm saying here, you could just read it as well, you know? But the essay Mové San Legate, which is the name of my album as well, Bad Blood, Spoiled Milk, Body Fluids as Moral Parameters in Rural Haiti, written in 1988. I forgot to add the author, but it sparked my thesis towards the end of 2019, right before the global incubation phase that was 2020. I let myself stew with the words from the essay. I let myself sit, churning a wooden spoon within the slop of the inconceivable from time to time. I went into my showers, reflecting on it. I massaged my skin mindlessly with shea nut, trying to imagine it all. I rubbed myself raw, trying to quantify it. The ails of pregnant women out in rural Haiti followed me around like a scent. I've dedicated the past 3 years to this research, tracking the footsteps of the enslaved from the stretched lands to the bottom of the sea. I followed ship voyages across the Atlantic, same as ancient sharks followed the blood trails from the vessels. I sifted through seas crowded with infant Black toddlers, their mothers never far behind, who died along them, if not always in the physical, most certainly always in spirit. I've applied to over 30 grants, residencies, fellowships with hopes to fund this itch to lay my people to rest. This research has casted a spell of perspective onto my life. This research has made me feel strong in my weakest moments and safe in my most harmful ones. Just because the pain is massive doesn't mean we shouldn't try and be meticulous in remembering. If there are 12.5 million bodies boarding a European galleon, originally built for war, then later transitioned for the trade of Guineamen, to the New World, there are 12.5 million intricate lives to dream about. Then there are their children and their children's children, children and their children's children's children, and all the children to come, till we see ourselves, our peers, our contemporaries. The pain may be unquantifiable, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try and dream up each singular experience. Honor is found in the witness, in the choice to remember, to kneel down and spend a moment in silence. We honor the stories forgotten in spaces between speech. The gift and catastrophe of imagination is knowing anything you could dream of very well may have already happened. If not on this plane, then on the millions of others that are sure to exist within and outside the observable universe. Because of the sheer size of vulnerable people with no proper laws or regulations put forth for their protection, I figure any form of torture I can think of has already been committed. I don't think that I have a single original thought or dream. Not to say that I don't exist in a realm of specialness. My experience, although my own intricate, is wildly ordinary against the timeline of humanity. It's a light bulb that feels similar to why James Baldwin appreciated a good read, or what offered momentary balm to Emile Sinclair's angst-ridden youth. See Damien, the story of Emile Sinclair's youth by Herman Hesse. Our lives become universal when we are specific, detailed, and careful with language. I first thought of this after hearing Frank Ocean's Endless Project. I listened to him murmur about his life, dropping names and specific details, and I wondered how and most importantly, why it felt like he was also recounting my own experience. I made a mental note then at the tender age of 21 to follow in his footsteps. Since then, my writing has gradually shifted throughout the years. Impressionable and wide-eyed, I soaked up the subtle ways of the artists I admired. I stopped writing in parables and riddles. I laid out my truths, my abusers, my lovers, my friends, and my foes with their government names and bared witness to a healing that has only come when I speak up and speak accurately to my experience. I swore to write out the names of all my trespassers and lovers in my journal, something that was taboo for me throughout my teenagehood. When I share my writing, it is because I was raised that way. I was raised by artists I admired for their low murmuring, belted wails, and fierce relatability. That's who I was watching as a young artist, like an awkward doe, fully realize my legs are well practiced in this realm. The sharing of private truths comes as natural as breathing to me. I'm hardwired to think of the particular, the individual, to think of the books that have gutted me, and do the same thing in return. I cast out my own net of experience through song, photo essays, music, moving visuals, Instagram stories, and strings of tweets with a live understanding that my experience is as extraordinary as it is ordinary. Someone out there is bound to understand. Someone out there wants to understand. And with that, my last offering, another song from my album Homestretch, Burial Caves, Our Eyes, Our Gods, the outro by TWEAKS. Oh.
Just have to be grateful.
All right. I'm gonna restart it. Okay, my fault. Last time. I'm sorry. I'm also getting like, I want to eat. I'm here. Let's do this. Come on.
I just have to be grateful. Gave me a new life, new eyes, a love that baptized. No, I can never hate you. I just have to be grateful. It's a sin to praise you, but I see the God in you. I just have to be grateful. Gave myself a new life. Gave myself a new loosen myself, can't you see? To worship self, to calling me. Can't you see? Can't you see? Shed tears, waste sunshine light. Feel like I'm walking light. Shed tears, waste sunshine light. Feel like I'm walking light.
And that was our presentation. I would love for you guys to come off of mute so I can hear y'all.
Yay!
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay!
That was lovely.
Thank you, Sue.
That was so
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you guys so much for sitting with me through this. This is gorgeous. I'm really happy that we had this time. And I know we are like, I think it's been like 2 hours or something.
It's been 2 hours, 30 minutes.
2 hours, 30 minutes. So I would hate to leave the space and not open it up to like any like questions, critiques. So, but let's like keep in mind that we have things to do. So maybe I'll just take a few questions, and anything else, I'll have you guys could email me and I could respond personally.
I'm sure the link is also open for people that have probably been popping stuff in there.
Oh
Or-
yeah, I didn't even think about that. Let me see. I don't think there was no questions. Yeah, no one put it in the link. So maybe there are no questions. That's nice too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, one raised hand. All right. Nyan Cham.
Yes. My question is, well, when you were talking about the vision that you got right about that time when you were reading The Delectable Negro, I'm not sure whether it was at that time or before. But I was thinking what about what what qualities one will have for ancestors to what is the question? I was thinking about how responsible you must be for ancestors to trust you with that kind of vision. And I was also thinking about, because we also talked about witnesses, and I don't believe that just anyone should be a witness to your grief, or you shouldn't just let anyone into the space of your grief. Even with ancestors, I'm sure that you were chosen with those visions for a reason. We also talked about you being a witness for your ancestors. So what do you think, or how can we embody presence of people that are responsible witnesses, are responsible with visions, are in that sense? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that perspective, because yeah, there is like um I do notice the shift of like when I started getting like these very specific downloads from my ancestors was definitely when I was in the midst of like very large grief, where it's like I was more humble than I've ever been. Like death was like offering me a humility where it was like it was making me a better listener. I think when it comes to ancestors, also, I don't think it's just about it coming to you. I asked. I really asked. I was actually like I was having like I was reading the book that I was actually reading was Of Water and the Spirit by Malidoma. And I remember I was so disheartened one day. It was like I was doing like a fellowship out in Los Angeles. And as I was reading this text, it was dawning on me like how much erasure has happened. And I was like, well, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? They took me all the way here, and like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't have a Dagara tribe behind me. How am I gonna do rituals? And I remember I went to the sea. I remember I took like an $80 Uber to the sea because I'm just from Florida, and like I just be needing to go to the water when I'm having like a dilemma. And I sat there and I swung on these swings that were on the beach, and I was just like, "Can you guys help me?" Like I asked. I really asked. I think a part of it is it's not just about being chosen. I think more than anything, it's less about being chosen, and more like I said, it's about like dreaming. It's about asking. It's about saying like, I was like, you know what? I really do want to know more about my roots. You know, like of course, thank you so much to me. I really do want to hold space, and I don't know where to begin. And I was so disheartened because I didn't know where to begin, and I asked, and that's when I started getting those really specific visions after I asked. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have any more? Okay. Hi, Sibby. Go ahead. Let's hear your question.
So, it's less of a question and more of an offering to the space because I know we're all here in community and we're all here together, but I also want to be the least extractive that I can be. So I want to offer a thought that's been sitting with me since yesterday. I went to a discussion around the idea of maroonage. It was a book called I Am a Maroon by Russell Schultz. And
Wow.
there was Paul Coates, the founder of the Black Classic Press and a former Black Panther Party member, mediating, moderating the conversation. There was a crowd member who was behind me who came and she um identifies as a maroon, but she found the term offensive because of how it had been used historically
Mhm.
um against those who ran away and kind of course, seeing them in an animalistic way, like we were
Mhm.
talking about with the cattle, and that she does not claim that word. And she was like, I am not a maroon. Um,
Mhm.
but it was the idea that uh, what Paul Coach was saying was that that is not necessarily the reality for everyone in the way where Black Americans, African Americans have taken that word and found the meaning of it in Black resistance. And in that idea, I found it interesting to have sensitivity for not romanticizing it in that way, but also that in that text, inherently, it was talking about how it's like hiding oneself, scurrying by, and then also saying something about becoming animal, which I found very interesting with that, and that's kind of a reclaiming of that definition. And then also I had a conversation with Mr. Coates this morning, and we were talking about the ways in which maroonage is our transformative tool in exact opposition to the ways in which like capitalism is transformative and keeps showing up in cycles and in ways to take our things and put it back against us, and we keep fighting the same battles against it. And that's why it's such a thing that continues and that we have to reckon with. But we have a tool in our box that is the exact same way in which it transcends time and it transforms, and that can show up in many different ways, like you were saying with our art practices, which is something that I'm very excited to explore. As long as we keep our autonomy and we are in communication with our ancestors who have created that legacy and that path for us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Siv, for saying that. Also, like, I really appreciate you bringing up that person's experience with the word. You know what I mean? Because, like with all reclamation, we're coming from different sides. We're coming from different ways the words have been used on us. Like, you know, in Jamaica, saying you come from maroon blood is kind of like saying like you can't bad me up. You know what I mean? It's very much like it's like a badge of honor. Like, you know, it's like, okay, I'm from maroon blood. Like, don't mess with me, kind of thing. And so with the term, I've always had a very endearing time with it, as I do come from maroon blood myself, and like just having like this relationship with it, where it's like, oh, like these are the people who just like resisted. And then also with maroon, just like this is where you saw like a lot of indigenous and Black people come together and like just being okay, bye, and just being just like understanding that like this is where like a lot of solidarity was forged between Black, you know, and African enslaved people and indigenous people of the land. But that's always just like a really good marker to hold, where it's like these words hold weight for different people, and it's not easy to hear it. So thank you. Anyone else? Any last things? Last words? Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. We're gonna wrap it up here, my boys.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And now I would love for us to think about that person we thought about earlier who we're in grief with. Look at that picture really quick. And with everything we just spoke about, what are we feeling? You know, take that with you. Take that with your Sunday. I wish you a beautiful Sunday wherever you are, whatever time it is. And I'm going to have some breakfast now. Thank you, guys.
Yes, and thank you, TWEAKS, for this offering through Wide Futures. It's so incredible to know that like there really has been a thread from what it means to really cite knowledge from a place of grief, because grief really is at the roots of our lived experience, but it shouldn't be a stagnant point. It should be the decay is the fertilizer for our soul. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. Well, please keep in touch with what Wide Futures is doing.
Yes, shout out Wide Futures.
Yeah, more collective space for grief. Yeah. Thank you so much again, TWEAKS. Thank you, everyone. And thanks to the ancestors and our unseen collective who are not privileged to be in this space or aren't privileged to life at all. We give thanks always.
Always. Okay, guys. Have a good
And this will
Sunday.
be uploaded on YouTube. So, yeah.
Yes. Also, could I get it from my own archives as well?
Sure. I'll be sending it to you.
Okay. See you guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am so tired. Like, I am so exhausted. Exhausted. Oh wait, this is still recording, so I'm gonna need to wait.